Hello, in the video today we're going to talk about presentation video feeds and how they're used in the Raven live video switching platform. So let's jump right in. All right, as you can see in my Raven configuration, I've already pulled up a scene called Sermon, and I'm using a church example here. Say you have a pastor or a leader who is giving a sermon or teaching about something, and they have slides that accompany their teaching. And these slides might be projected onto a screen or displayed on a video wall of some sort, but they're generally something that's being viewed live by the audience. Well, in Raven, we obviously want to see that slide information as well, but we usually want it to be displayed full screen. So switching to that full screen and then displaying it for a period of time and then going back to the cameras that are looking at the speaker or the pastor, that's how we want to handle things, because that's how a human would do it if they were running the switcher. Well, let's program the same smarts into Raven. So what we have here is I've defined an NDI video input called ProPresenter Audience as a presentation feed. And if we come over to this input video tab and I get a preview of this, I'll show you what it looks like. I'm using a program called ProPresenter. You could use Proclaim or even PowerPoint, and there's a number of different presentation software packages out there. But basically, what I've done is I've taken a mirrored NDI output from the program that says that's exactly what is being projected onto a screen for the audience to see. And in this case, it's song lyrics so that they can sing along with this song. So as you can see, it's an animated background, so there's motion. It's fairly subtle, but we'll see how this works here in a moment. Meanwhile, back in my sermon scene, I'm going to look at the presentation video details. Now, there are three settings here that we need to pay attention to: pixel, black, and screen. Pixel is the number of pixels that must change in order for Raven to consider the video feed as having motion. Now, what does motion mean? It just means, hey, something has changed in this and we need to display it full screen. So you define that pixel threshold here. The default is 20. You can change it to your liking. Black levels. This is how Raven detects that presentation feed has gone to black. So for example, say a slide has been displayed with maybe a Bible verse on it during a sermon, and it's up there for a minute or so, and then whoever's running that presentation system decides to go to black. And so they remove that slide from the display. The display is now black. Raven will detect that as not motion, so it will not switch to that full screen just because it went to black. Well, this defines black levels, so like how far away from true black will all the pixels have to be in order for Raven to consider not switching to it, if that makes any sense. So, in other words, if the image is almost all black, given this default of 35, then Raven won't switch to it just because the presentation feed goes to black. And this last threshold called screen is what percentage of the entire image has to change in order for Raven to consider there to have been motion and to warrant switching to it. So let's see how this works in an actual running scene. So I'm going to go ahead and start Raven up. I'm going to look at the live controller here. And we'll see initially it showed the primary or the main feed for this scene, but then it detected that there was motion in the ProPresenter audience feed and it made it full screen. We can see that if we go over and look at the details while Raven is running. Notice this sense motion parameter is constantly being reset back to 0. As you can see, it only goes about 2 to 4 seconds before enough of the image has changed that Raven says, hey, there's motion here and I need to display this full screen. And since it's constantly being reset, it continues displaying that. If we were displaying a video, for example, which is basically what this is, then Raven would just stay on this input until the video was done. Okay? Now let's leave this up for a moment, and then I'm going to switch to a static background image and we'll watch what happens. Okay, now I switched to a static background image, and we're watching this timer count up, the Sense Motion timer. Well, it's going to continue to count up. It's now more than 8 seconds, so sometime between now and I believe it was 18 seconds. Yes, there we go. Raven is now switched back to the camera feeds in this sermon scene. And it's going to stay that way because it hasn't detected motion on the presentation feed. The presentation feed hasn't changed. Now, watch what happens when I go to black on that presentation feed. Okay, the presentation feed is now black, so there's nothing being displayed on the screen in front of the audience, and Raven detected that it went to black, as noted by the green circle, and so it didn't switch to that. It wouldn't make sense to switch to just black full screen in the middle of a sermon. But watch what happens when I put up another slide. And there we have it. There is a new slide that was displayed on the screen. Raven detected it as motion and brought that full screen in the output and is now switching back to the cameras. So hopefully that gives you some insight as to how presentation feeds are used to help automate going back and forth between presentation sources in a live event. And hopefully that was helpful, and see you in the next video.